Howdy y'all, this is Dwight. Welcome back to my channel. I had a gentleman request that I show how I go about making a pocket knife from a drawing or a tracing. And I also happen to have a tracing here of a trapper that I'm wanting to add to my patterns. It is a lot more of a slim trapper with a longer style clip on it. And that's something I'm wanting to, like I said, add to my patterns. So I thought this was a great opportunity to do a little video series showing how I make a slip joint pocket knife from a tracing, which in my opinion is the same from tracing or a drawing. I go about it the same way. First off, I'm not considering this tutorials. I'm just showing how I go about it. So if you can learn something, that's great. But I ain't saying this is exactly how you need to go about it. This is just kind of what works for me. Okay, as far as going from a tracing or a drawing, I do not consider a tracing or a drawing a working pattern. So when you go about making a knife from that, there's a big difference a big difference in anticipated results if you're going from a working pattern or a non-working pattern. And I consider a drawing or a tracing a non-working pattern. All that is giving me is my basic part shapes. It's giving me my basic blade shape, basic handle shape, back spring shape, possibly. Some tracings I've gotten a hold of, the back spring is like, where in the world did this come from? So again, drawing or tracing, in my opinion, is not a working pattern. And so the first knife that you attempt to make from a drawing or tracing, if it works, for me, I feel lucky, because most of the time I have to make it a couple different times to get a proper functioning knife from it. It kind of depends on, well, there's variables to it. I just don't consider my first attempt to be automatically a perfect knife that I can fully assemble and put together and use or send down the road, what have you. Usually it's a bit of a process. So I thought I'd bring y'all along and show the process with you. And if I get lucky and make a good functioning knife out of this, well, it'll be pretty awesome all the way around, in my opinion. I'm not going to go through and show exactly how I make the pocket knife. I was explaining all that in my previous series of how I make a basic slip joint pocket knife. I might show you what I'm doing, but I'm necessarily probably won't explain it unless I feel that it pertains to what I'm doing with the tracing that I have. So, with all that being said, I'm going to turn you all around and point you at my workbench here, and we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, here's the tracing that I'm going to go by, and the handle length is right at 3 3/8 inches long. That's a little shorter than what I'm wanting to do. I'm wanting to have really close to 3 3/4 inch. If it's just under something, I don't mind. So I'm going to be extending this like a genius on a new pattern. I'm going to be extending this at least 1/4 inch to get it closer to that 3 3/4 inch handle length. So that means I'm going to have to be extending the blade and all like that. So like I said, I'm pulling a genius move here. Now, I keep my tracing intact, or my drawing, whichever I'm using, and I trace my parts onto another piece of paper. That way the original stays intact. That way, if for whatever reason what I've traced out just gets all boogered up and I need to redo things, I still have my pristine tracing to go by. So I'm going to go ahead and trace this out, and I'm just going to, for the general design of this, I'm just going to extend my length out at the pivot end. Now, as I go about making this, I very well may make it a hair bit fatter. Time will tell on that. Again, I'm just using these as basic shapes. I am not meaning for these to be 100% what I need. Okay, to be 3 3/4, need to bring it out there. So then I will just move this on my tracing. And finish tracing it out. Okay, now this is my handle that I'm going to go by. Of course, I will cut that out. And I will go ahead and trace my blade. Now, to extend my blade 1/4 inch, I want to divide it between my clip point and the spine, or do I want to make the clip point longer or my spine longer? That is the question I'm asking myself at this point. So, tip, what's the length of it? Whole length overall is 3 inches. So I'm extending it 1/4 inch. So I'll go ahead and I will mark my line right there. And I will go ahead and move my tracing down, because I can go ahead and do the cutting edge part of this. This can be a little bit more tricky to move. There we go, about right there. I will just eyeball the general. I'm going to split the clip and the spine in half. Okay, there's my blade. I will probably make the clip a hair bit more, possibly straighter. I will get that clip how I want it as I'm making the actual part. Again, this is just going to be my basic shape. Now if you look at how that tang square is clocked, to me that's clocked a little bit funky, because if we go straight up from the half stop square, there's a good possibility the blade will be tilted back. So I got to keep that in mind. But like always, I'm going to have extra material on that, and I will make my own tang square clocked however I want it. So I'm not too awfully worried about that. But I have noticed I have had some patterns that the tang square is clocked just really funky. Let's see, now for the back spring. I ain't expecting a whole lot from the back spring. Again, just basic shape. I'm just going to bring the end of it on out, which I might end up drilling the hole a little bit farther forward to get to compensate. So, as you've seen, I took very little care on how I traced the back spring. That's how much faith I have in the tracing. But I have my basic knife shape now. So now I'm going to cut these out, and I'll be back when I'm done with that. I have my parts traced and cut out now. In full disclosure, I did not make my blade long enough the first time around, so I had to redo that, and now I have it the correct length I'm going to need. And I got to give the gentleman that sent me this tracing over his flowers, because he did a very good job with tracing this out, because just from laying, say, the blade on the handle where it's going to need to go, that is not far off at all from where it's going to need to be to work. Of course, on a tracing, it's a given that the distance from the cutting edge to the spine is going to be a little fatter than what the finished shape is going to need to be. But still yet, that is very close to where it's going to need to be. And a lot of times tracings can be very far off. So he did an excellent job when it came to tracing the parts out. And the back spring actually fits on there very nicely. Again, the distance from the inside to the spine I know is going to be fatter than what the finished shape is going to be. And still yet, things fit pretty good. And this is from a working pattern, because I am not sure if you can see or not. You might be able to tell just right here, the back spring is inset into the handle. So on a working pattern, this back spring, if you shape it correctly, will automatically have the pretension that he wants on his pocket knife. I'm on the fence if I'm going to do that or not, because everybody can be a little different when it comes to their back spring tension. So I may do that part on my own. I don't know. As I said, I'm still on the fence with that. But anyhow, I have my basic knife parts now, so I'm going to proceed to lay these on materials and cut them out. Okay, I now have my liner material and my blade and back spring just rough cut out. I still need to go through and get everything shaped, but I'm starting to run low on my phone memory, so this will do it for this video. And when I come back, I will start getting things shaped down, and I will kind of show how I make sure things are going to fit in my liners. But I do appreciate everyone who stopped by and is watching my videos. And until the next video, y'all take care.